Part 1, Introduction, the Hidden Blueprint for Lasting Wealth. We are constantly bombarded with conventional wisdom regarding financial success. We are told that the path to prosperity is paved with relentless hard work, shrewd investments, striking the elusive big deal, or perhaps uncovering some secret, insider financial strategy. The world whispers promises of security and fulfillment through material accumulation, urging us to chase the next promotion, the latest market trend, or the most aggressive growth stock. And for many, this pursuit yields a certain level of outward success, a larger home, a newer car, impressive titles. Yet, what if this conventional wisdom, this widespread pursuit, is fundamentally flawed? What if, without a deeper alignment with timeless, divine principles, the very wealth we strive to build is, in the end, nothing more than a magnificent house constructed on shifting sand? As our Lord Jesus himself taught in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 7, verses 24 through 27, when one builds a house on a sandy foundation, though it may look sturdy, when the rains come and the floods rise and the winds blow against it, it will fall with a great crash. This applies not just to our spiritual lives, but profoundly to our financial constructs. I can personally attest to this paradox. For years, I observed, and indeed participated in, what the world deemed smart financial choices. I pursued education, climbed career ladders, and engaged in what I believed were prudent investments. On the surface, progress was evident. Yet, beneath the veneer of perceived competence, there often lingered a quiet unease, a sense of striving, and a distinct lack of the deep, abiding peace that I knew God intended for His children. The missing piece was not more secular knowledge or harder work. It was a profound disconnect between my faith and my finances. Tragically, this disconnect is not uncommon. Many earnest believers, committed to their spiritual walk, inadvertently compartmentalize their faith, separating it from the practicalities of money, business, and wealth creation. They assume that prayer and devotion belong in one sphere, while financial strategy and wealth building belong entirely in another. This mistaken belief, that faith and finances are mutually exclusive, or that the pursuit of prosperity is inherently unspiritual, costs individuals dearly. It costs them not only tremendous opportunities for God-honoring wealth, but also prevents them from leaving a multi-generational legacy of blessing and freedom. It traps them in cycles of debt, scarcity, and perpetual struggle, often believing that such hardship is a mark of piety, when in truth, it can often be a consequence of misunderstanding God's comprehensive design. But what if the very roadmap to true, lasting, and God-honoring wealth has been available to us all along, nestled within the sacred pages of the Holy Bible? What if the same Creator who intricately designed the universe also provided a comprehensive blueprint for building wealth without ever compromising one's soul, one's purpose, or one's peace? In the sessions that follow, I promise to peel back the layers of misconception and reveal 10 powerful, hidden biblical money lessons. These are not mere theories, but actionable principles that offer a divine blueprint for breaking free from destructive financial patterns, liberating yourself and your family from the chains of debt, supernaturally opening unforeseen business doors, and multiplying your resources in ways that defy conventional explanation. This journey will be challenging at times, for it will require us to confront deeply ingrained beliefs and cultural norms that often stand in direct opposition to God's Word. Yet, it will also be profoundly empowering, as we embrace truths that transform our understanding of money, not as a master to be served, but as a tool to be stewarded for God's greater purposes. Ultimately, building wealth God's way is the only way worth pursuing, a path that leads not just to material abundance, but to a life rich in purpose, peace, and an enduring legacy. So, prepare your hearts and minds, for you are invited to embark on a transformative journey, designed by the Creator Himself, to unlock the hidden blueprint for lasting wealth in your life. Part 2, Lesson 1, Start with God's Blueprint, Purpose Before Profit. Having established that the Bible holds a hidden blueprint for lasting wealth, a design far more profound and enduring than conventional wisdom, we now turn our attention to the very first, foundational lesson. This lesson is arguably the most critical, for it determines the stability and ultimate success of all our future financial endeavors. It is the principle that lasting wealth begins not with a financial strategy, but with understanding and aligning with God's pre-laid blueprint for our lives and our resources. Biblical prosperity is never mere accumulation, it is fundamentally about alignment with divine will. It's about discerning God's grand design for your life, your gifts, and your resources, and then building within that framework. The book of Proverbs, chapter 3, verses 9 and 10, lays out this foundational truth: honor the Lord with your wealth and with the firstfruits of all your produce, then your barns will be filled with plenty, and your vats will overflow with new wine. This passage reveals a profound truth: honoring God first with our resources is not a charitable act, but a strategic act of alignment that unlocks abundance. When our financial endeavors are built on this premise, they become rooted in something far more stable than market fluctuations or human ingenuity. Consider the immense danger of building without God as the ultimate architect. Just as a physical structure built without proper plans, or worse, built against the laws of physics, is destined to collapse under pressure, so too is wealth accumulated outside of God's blueprint. It may appear impressive for a time, but when the inevitable storms of life come, economic downturns, unforeseen challenges, or personal crises, that wealth, lacking divine integrity, will crumble, leaving behind devastation. True biblical prosperity is robust, resilient, and unshakable precisely because it is established on the eternal, unchanging principles of God. This brings us to the core of this first lesson: the paradigm of purpose before profit. This stands in direct, radical opposition to the world's pervasive money-first approach. The world teaches, chase the money, and then figure out what you want to do with it, or what kind of person you want to be. God's blueprint, however, insists that purpose must precede profit. When your financial goals and business ventures are rooted in a clear, God-given purpose, whether it's to solve a specific problem, serve a particular community, bless your family, or advance a ministry, then profit becomes the natural, desired byproduct, the fuel that enables you to fulfill that higher purpose. Money in this context is a tool, not an idol. We see this beautifully illustrated in the story of Nehemiah rebuilding the wall of Jerusalem. Nehemiah didn't simply decide to build a wall and then pray for money to appear. His motive was clear: to restore the dignity and security of his people, to rebuild what God desired. He prayed, he planned, he went to the king, and then, as he embarked on God's clear mission, the necessary resources, materials, and manpower systematically followed. The finances, the provisions, the protection, all these flowed into Nehemiah's hands because he was operating within God's pre-laid blueprint for restoration. He wasn't chasing funds, he was pursuing a divine mandate, and provision aligned with purpose. Think of it like constructing a magnificent skyscraper. You don't just start pouring concrete and stacking steel. You begin with a detailed, architectural blueprint. This blueprint dictates every aspect of the structure, ensuring its stability and functionality. In God's blueprint for wealth, this plan intrinsically covers core components. It dictates how generosity will be woven into the very fabric of your financial life. It outlines the unwavering commitment to integrity in every transaction. It establishes the principles of faithful stewardship over every resource, and it designs for multiplication, ensuring your wealth serves to bless many, not just yourself. The consequences of ignoring this divine plan are starkly outlined in the parable of the talents in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 25. The master entrusted his servants with various sums, expecting them to multiply these resources. The servants who understood their master's intention and acted strategically with their talents were rewarded. But the one who, out of fear or misunderstanding, merely buried his talent, operating outside the master's expectation for multiplication, was condemned. This parable underscores that God has a plan for the resources He entrusts to us, and ignoring that plan has significant consequences, leading not just to stagnation but to loss. In practical application, embracing purpose before profit means making a conscious decision to set value-driven financial goals, rather than greed-driven ones. Instead of merely saying, "I want to make $1 million," you ask, what problems will that $1 million solve? What impact will it have for good? What vision will it fuel that honors God? It means building businesses that are designed, from their inception, to solve real problems for real people, to support families with fair wages and dignified work, and to operate with unwavering biblical ethics, honesty, excellence, and service. When your why is rooted in divine purpose, it profoundly influences every financial decision, from how you manage your cash flow to how you treat your employees and customers. This purpose-driven approach fosters fiercely loyal customer bases and, crucially, attracts divine provision, because your work becomes a conduit for God's blessing in the marketplace. This is the bedrock of lasting wealth. It is the blueprint for building on a rock, not on sand. Part 3, Lesson 2, Steward Money Like a Faithful Servant, Trust and Management. In our foundational lesson, we established that lasting wealth begins with God's blueprint, prioritizing purpose before profit, aligning our endeavors with divine will. Now, with that crucial understanding firmly in place, we turn to the second indispensable lesson, the profound responsibility of stewarding money like a faithful servant. This principle challenges a deep-seated worldly notion, for in God's economy, wealth is never truly an owned possession, it is always an entrusted gift. The psalmist declares this truth with absolute clarity in Psalm 24, verse 1, "The earth is the Lord's, and everything in it, the world, and all who live in it." This verse is not just a theological statement, it is a foundational principle for understanding our financial reality. Every dollar, every asset, every opportunity, every skill, and every breath we take belongs ultimately to God. We are merely managers, temporary caretakers entrusted with His resources. True stewardship, then, involves far more than simply holding on to what we have. It demands using those resources wisely, actively growing them, and intentionally directing them toward God's purposes, for the advancement of His kingdom and the blessing of humanity. Let us begin with the practical side of this profound spiritual principle. Effective stewardship starts with knowing where every single cent goes. This requires disciplined budgeting, a meticulous tracking of income and expenses, and a conscious allocation of funds. It demands intentional investing, seeking to multiply the resources entrusted to us, and purposeful spending, ensuring that our expenditures align with our values and God's will, rather than being driven by impulse or worldly desire. It is a profound paradox that many sincere believers pray fervently for financial blessing, yet simultaneously neglect the basic financial planning and disciplined management that God expects of every steward. We pray for rain, but fail to dig channels to collect it. Consider the remarkable example of Jesus feeding the 5,000, as recounted in the Gospel of John, chapter 6. After the miraculous multiplication of the loaves and fish, Jesus gave a striking instruction in verse 12, "Gather up the fragments that remain, so that nothing is wasted." Here, the Creator of the universe, who could instantly replenish anything, demonstrated a profound principle of resource management. Even in superabundance, there is no place for waste. Every fragment, every leftover, was to be carefully collected and utilized. This is a powerful metaphor for our financial lives. Even when blessings flow abundantly, we are called to meticulously manage every resource, avoiding waste, maximizing efficiency, and honoring the source of all provision. In practical application, this lesson translates into several key actions. 1. Automate savings. Just as Nehemiah had a clear blueprint, you need a clear plan for your money. Set up automatic transfers to savings accounts and investment vehicles. This ensures consistent growth and builds your financial vessel without relying on willpower alone. It's a disciplined act of setting aside for future purpose. 2. Invest in appreciating assets. Shift your focus from consuming depreciating liabilities, like new cars that lose value rapidly, to investing in appreciating assets. This could include well-researched real estate, diversified stock portfolios, or investments in your own skills or business that promise growth and return. Your money should work for you, not just flow away from you. 3. Support biblical initiatives. True stewardship includes active generosity. Beyond tithing, seek out and purposefully support ministries, charities, or ethical local businesses that align with God's kingdom values and are making a tangible difference in the world. This is sowing into good soil, ensuring your wealth serves a higher purpose. 4. Avoid risky schemes. Pursue stability and dividends. While the world often promotes speculative, get-rich-quick ventures, biblical wisdom favors steady, consistent growth. Focus on stable, dividend-paying stocks, well-researched real estate ventures, or ethical local businesses with proven models. These are investments rooted in diligence and value creation, not reckless gambling. Ultimately, faithful stewardship is the pathway to influence and God's promotion. Jesus' teaching in Luke, chapter 16, verse 10, serves as our guiding principle. One who is faithful in a very little is also faithful in much, and one who is dishonest in a very little is also dishonest in much. God observes how we manage the resources currently entrusted to us, no matter how humble they may seem. He is looking for faithfulness, for diligence, for wisdom in handling His property. When we demonstrate this trustworthiness in the little areas of our finances, we are positioning ourselves for God to entrust us with much. This mastery of stewardship is not just about avoiding debt or building a comfortable life, it is the essential preparation for the multiplication God desires to bring, equipping us to be channels of His vast abundance. Part 4, Lesson 3, Multiply your talents without fear, faith in action. We have thoroughly explored the imperative of stewarding money like a faithful servant, understanding that all resources belong to God and that our trustworthiness with little prepares us for much. This diligent management of what we currently possess is indeed foundational. However, true biblical prosperity is not merely about holding on to what we have, it is intrinsically linked to the divine command to multiply. This leads us to our third crucial lesson: the mandate to multiply your talents without succumbing to fear. Fear is perhaps one of the most significant inhibitors of potential, a silent saboteur that keeps countless individuals from stepping into the abundance God has prepared for them. We see this powerfully illustrated in the parable of the talents, found in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 25. While 2 servants diligently invested and doubled their master's money, the third servant, when confronted, confessed in verse 25, "I was afraid, and I went and hid your talent in the ground." His failure was not due to a bad investment or a lack of opportunity, but solely due to paralyzing fear. This fear prevents initiative, stifles innovation, and ultimately leads to stagnation, rather than the intended multiplication. God's call to us is not to play it safe at all costs, especially when it comes to expanding His kingdom and manifesting His design in the marketplace. While recklessness is certainly not from God, a Spirit-led willingness to take calculated risks is often a prerequisite for breakthrough. Playing it safe, choosing the path of least resistance, or clinging to security at the expense of divine prompting, inevitably stifles growth, not just financial growth, but also personal, spiritual, and communal growth. It's like planting a seed and then refusing to water it for fear it might not sprout. The very act of withholding the necessary elements guarantees the desired outcome will never materialize. The Apostle James, in his epistle, chapter 2, verse 17, delivers a profound spiritual principle that translates directly into our financial lives. Thus also faith by itself, if it does not have works, is dead. In the context of our finances and our God-given talents, this means that unused resources, unexpressed ideas, and unattempted ventures are effectively wasted. Faith in God's provision, without corresponding action to multiply what He has entrusted to us, is a dormant, lifeless faith. If you have idle capital sitting in a low-interest account, or business ideas that have been gathering dust in your mind for years, God is challenging you to put them into motion. Trust Him to bless your initiative, your diligence, and your willingness to step out. What does this multiplication look like in practical terms? It could involve starting a side business, leveraging a skill, a passion, or a market need to create an additional stream of income. This might be freelancing, developing a digital product, or offering a specialized service. Investing in profitable ventures aligned with values, beyond simple savings. Actively research and invest in businesses or assets that are not only financially sound but also align with your kingdom values and produce genuine value in the world. This could be well-researched stocks, real estate, or even lending to ethical local businesses. Upgrading existing business models. If you already own a business, it means continually innovating, expanding your reach, improving your offerings, and seeking new markets or technologies to increase profitability and impact. Overcoming fear in the realm of multiplication is not about ignoring risk. It is about managing it wisely. This means diligent research, thorough planning, and crucially, seeking counsel from mentors, seasoned experts, and wise, prayerful believers who have navigated similar paths. Proverbs, chapter 15, verse 22, reminds us, "Without counsel, plans go awry, but in the multitude of counselors they are established." Wise counsel provides discernment, helps mitigate blind spots, and offers strategies to navigate challenges. This is faith combined with prudence, boldness tempered with wisdom. Furthermore, God's multiplication plan often involves collaboration. You don't have to do it all alone. Partnering with others who possess complementary gifts and skills, or forming strategic alliances, can accelerate growth and amplify impact beyond what any single individual could achieve. This reflects the body of Christ working together, where each part contributes to the flourishing of the whole. In conclusion, a genuine commitment to multiplication positions you for exponential growth in your finances and your capacity for impact. It signifies a profound shift from a posture dominated by fear to one energized by courage. Your actions become dictated by your unwavering faith in God's ability to bless and increase, rather than by anxieties about potential loss or failure. When we diligently step out, sowing the seeds of our talents and resources into fertile ground, God honors that faith. He provides the increase, transforming our courageous steps into a harvest of abundance, all for His glory and for the advancement of His kingdom on earth. Part 5, Lesson 4, Build Business on Righteous Foundations, Character as Capital. We have pressed into the vital lesson of multiplying our talents without fear, understanding that faith demands action and that growth stems from courageous stewardship. This naturally leads us to our fourth indispensable principle, especially for those venturing into entrepreneurship or building wealth through business: the absolute necessity of building your business on righteous foundations, recognizing that character is your most valuable capital in God's economy. Let this truth resonate deeply. Any business, any financial venture, any attempt to acquire wealth that is built on shady practices, dishonesty, exploitation, or ethical compromise, is ultimately destined to crumble. It may experience fleeting periods of success, accumulating temporary riches, but lacking integrity at its core, it will eventually collapse under the weight of its own corruption or the pressure of unforeseen circumstances. The wisdom of Proverbs, chapter 10, verse 9, affirms this unequivocally: whoever walks in integrity walks securely, but whoever takes crooked paths will be found out. God's economy operates on principles of truth and righteousness, and any deviation from these principles introduces instability and guarantees eventual exposure. In God's economy, character is not just a moral ideal, it is tangible capital. It means that every contract you sign, every partnership you forge, every deal you close, and every interaction you have with customers and employees must align with biblical values. This isn't just about avoiding what is illegal, it's about pursuing what is right, just, and honorable in God's eyes. When a business operates with this level of integrity, it builds not just temporary profit, but lasting trust, an invaluable currency that compounds over time and generates growing influence. The righteous foundations of a God-approved business begin with unwavering honesty and fairness. The Bible consistently condemns dishonesty in commercial dealings. Proverbs, chapter 11, verse 1, directly addresses this: the Lord detests dishonest scales, but accurate weights find favor with Him. This ancient condemnation of dishonest scales applies directly to modern business practices. It speaks to truthful pricing, transparent advertising, ethical marketing, and treating every customer with dignity and fairness. Businesses that mislead consumers, exploit vulnerabilities, compromise on product quality, or engage in deceptive practices lack kingdom longevity. They may gain short-term profits, but they erode trust, damage their reputation, and ultimately forfeit the favor of God. In practical application, this means consistently auditing your business practices. As a business owner or aspiring entrepreneur, regularly ask yourself, would I be proud to present this specific business decision, this marketing campaign, this supply chain practice, or this customer interaction directly before God? This internal accountability acts as a powerful filter. It guides you toward ethical supply chains, ensuring fair labor practices and responsible sourcing. It dictates truthful and transparent marketing, even if a slightly misleading claim could generate more sales. It demands that customer treatment is always rooted in genuine service and a desire to meet needs, not just extract profit. Furthermore, a righteous foundation profoundly impacts how you treat your team. The Apostle Paul, in his letter to the Colossians, chapter 4, verse 1, instructs Masters, grant to your bondservants what is just and fair, knowing that you also have a master in heaven. This timeless principle calls for fair wages, clear expectations, and a commitment to providing growth opportunities for your employees. It demands that you cultivate a workplace culture that reflects Christ's character, one of respect, empathy, dignity, and genuine care. When employees feel valued, respected, and justly compensated, they become invested not just in the company's success, but in its mission and its integrity, amplifying its positive impact. In conclusion, a business built on righteous foundations, where character is consistently valued as its most vital capital, gains not only the favor of God but also the enduring trust of the public. Such a business acts as a magnet for divine opportunities, for loyal customers, and for strategic partnerships that go far beyond what any marketing effort or aggressive sales tactic could achieve. It becomes a testament to God's principles in the marketplace, positioning itself not just for financial prosperity, but for profound influence and a lasting legacy. This is how you build a business that is truly secure and truly blessed, because its very foundation reflects the character of God Himself. Part 6, Lesson 5, Give First, Activating Divine Provision and Protection. We have just emphasized the non-negotiable principle of building businesses on righteous foundations, where character serves as our most valuable capital. Now, we turn to a lesson that might seem counterintuitive to conventional financial wisdom, yet it is utterly foundational to God's economy and pivotal for activating both divine provision and protection over our finances, the principle of giving first. In God's economy, giving is not an afterthought, a charitable act performed after we have accumulated surplus. Instead, it is often the very starting point, the initial act of faith that precedes the outpouring of blessing. The book of Proverbs, chapter 11, verse 25, encapsulates this beautifully. A generous person will prosper. Whoever refreshes others will be refreshed. This verse reveals a divine circulatory system. Giving precedes receiving. Generosity is the pathway to prosperity. The world teaches us to hoard, to accumulate first, and then perhaps, if there's enough left over, to give. But Scripture consistently demonstrates that blessings often follow the seed planted, showcasing our trust in God's provision and positioning us to receive His abundance. The most direct and powerful biblical instruction on this principle comes from the book of Malachi, chapter 3, verse 10, where God issues a challenge and a promise: "Bring the whole tithe into the storehouse, that there may be food in my house. Test me in this, says the Lord Almighty, and see if I will not throw open the floodgates of heaven and pour out so much blessing that there will not be room enough to store it." This is a divine invitation to engage in a spiritual experiment. Tithing, giving the first 10% of our income back to God through our local church or ministry, is the ultimate act of giving first. It acknowledges God as the ultimate source of all our provision, not our employer, not our skills, but His sovereign hand. It is an act of trust that activates divine multiplication and protection over the remaining 90%. Beyond the tithe, the scope of giving broadens to encompass funding kingdom projects, actively seeking out and helping struggling families in our communities, or faithfully supporting missions that spread the gospel globally. Every act of generous giving, cheerfully rendered, is a spiritual investment that aligns us with God's heart. It directly combats the insidious grip of greed and materialism, as Jesus warned against in Luke, chapter 12, verse 15, "Take heed and beware of all covetousness, for one's life does not consist in the abundance of the things he possesses." Giving is a constant spiritual antidote to the idolatry of money, ensuring our hearts remain fixed on God and His purposes, rather than becoming enslaved to possessions. From a practical business perspective, beyond the spiritual benefits, generosity also builds invaluable goodwill. A business that is genuinely generous, sponsoring local community events, providing free resources that truly help people, offering pro bono services to those in need, or mentoring aspiring entrepreneurs, attracts loyal customers and positive public sentiment. People are drawn to businesses that genuinely care and contribute to the well-being of their communities. This authentic generosity serves as a powerful magnet for opportunities, for positive referrals, and for a reputation that money simply cannot buy. It's a form of marketing that transcends traditional advertising, building trust and loyalty through tangible acts of kindness and contribution. In conclusion, choosing to give first, before all other expenses, before all other investments, activates a profound spiritual principle that transcends market trends, economic downturns, and human limitations. It places your finances directly under divine multiplication and protection, allowing your resources to flow in sync with God's endless, inexhaustible treasury. This is not a burdensome obligation but a liberating secret. It is crucial for breaking free from the financial chains of self-reliance and scarcity, and for positioning yourself as a faithful channel through which God can pour out His boundless provision, ensuring that your wealth is not stagnant, but constantly flowing, blessing both you and many others. This principle of first fruits giving is an act of faith that unlocks the floodgates of heaven. Part 7, Lesson 6, Avoid Debt That Enslaves, Embracing Financial Freedom. Having understood the transformative power of giving first, positioning ourselves to activate divine provision and protection, we now turn to a vital counterpart, the imperative to avoid debt that ensnares and embrace genuine financial freedom. This lesson directly confronts one of the most pervasive and destructive practices in modern society, a practice that quietly sabotages the financial lives of millions, even those who earnestly seek God's blessing. The Bible issues strong and consistent warnings against debt, not as a mere financial inconvenience, but as a condition of servitude. The clearest and most poignant articulation of this truth comes from the book of Proverbs, chapter 22, verse 7. The rich rule over the poor, and the borrower is slave to the lender. This verse is not simply an observation, it is a profound declaration of spiritual and practical reality. When you owe money, you are not truly free. A portion of your labor, your time, and your future earnings are already committed to someone else. You are working for your creditors before you are truly working for yourself or for God's kingdom. It is crucial to distinguish between different types of debt. While the Bible generally cautions against debt, there can be instances of strategically leveraged debt, particularly in the realm of business, where debt is used to acquire an appreciating asset that generates significant income or wealth. For example, a loan for a well-researched, income-producing commercial property that consistently generates more revenue than its expenses might, under very specific and prayerful conditions, be a calculated risk. However, the vast majority of debt that plagues individuals today is toxic debt, credit card balances accumulated for unnecessary consumer goods, high-interest personal loans, or excessive car notes driven by a desire for status rather than utility. This toxic debt chokes generosity, stifles investment in profitable ventures, and severely limits one's responsiveness to God's call. It silently creates invisible chains that bind you, preventing you from fully embracing your divine purpose and acting with agility when God opens new doors. Debt freedom, therefore, is not merely a financial aspiration, it is an essential component of spiritual liberty and kingdom effectiveness. In practical application, embracing this lesson requires decisive and often challenging action. If you currently carry debt, the first step is to list and rank all your debts, typically by interest rate, from highest to lowest. Then, commit to attacking the most costly debt first, using a disciplined approach like the debt avalanche, paying highest interest first, or the debt snowball, paying smallest balance first for psychological momentum. Every dollar you free up from debt payments is a dollar that can then be strategically invested, given to kingdom work, or used to build your financial vessel. Imagine the immense potential for kingdom work, for entrepreneurial ventures, or for building true wealth if those monthly debt payments were instead channeled towards God's purposes. Biblical wisdom repeatedly calls us to seek contentment in our present circumstances, rather than falling into the trap of endless acquisition. Hebrews, chapter 13, verse 5, instructs us, "Keep your lives free from the love of money and be content with what you have, because God has said, 'Never will I leave you, never will I forsake you.'" This divine assurance is our true security, not the illusion of debt-fueled status. The warning against falling into debt to maintain an image or a lifestyle God never called you to is profound. This kind of debt often stems from comparison, from a desire to keep up with the Joneses, or from a lack of contentment. It's a futile race that always leaves you financially exhausted and spiritually drained. Avoiding enslaving debt is not just about protecting your financial health, it is fundamentally about protecting your spiritual freedom and your capacity for obedience. It allows for agility and readiness to act swiftly when God opens new doors of opportunity, whether in business, ministry, or personal service. It sets the stage for making wise investment choices, as you're no longer playing defense against creditors, but proactively deploying resources for multiplication and kingdom impact. When you break free from the chains of debt, you truly step into a place of financial liberty, prepared to be a generous giver and a faithful steward of God's abundance. This freedom is indispensable for building lasting, God-honoring wealth. Part 8, Lesson 7. Invest with wisdom, not impulse, deliberate and prayerful action. Having firmly grasped the biblical imperative to avoid debt that enslaves, setting the stage for true financial freedom, we now move to a crucial lesson in the multiplication phase of wealth building, the necessity of investing with wisdom, not impulse. This principle is often the dividing line between those who build lasting wealth and those whose financial efforts yield only frustration and loss. The book of Proverbs, chapter 21, verse 5, offers a stark contrast that guides our approach. The plans of the diligent lead to profit as surely as haste leads to poverty. This timeless wisdom speaks directly to the realm of investing. Impulsive investing, chasing fleeting market trends, succumbing to hype without thorough research, making decisions based on emotion rather than informed analysis, is a direct pathway to financial pitfalls and, often, significant loss. It's the equivalent of planting seeds indiscriminately in barren ground, hoping for a miraculous harvest. Kingdom investment, however, is a deliberate, prayerful act rooted in discernment. It's about viewing every dollar available for investment as a seed, and diligently seeking to sow that seed into soil that can bear fruit for God's glory and for long-term, sustainable increase. This requires patience, discipline, and a willingness to seek divine guidance over human speculation. It means understanding that there are market seasons, just as there are seasons in life, as Ecclesiastes chapter 3 so profoundly teaches. There is a time to sow, a time to reap, a time to hold, and a time to sell. Wise investors do not allow their decisions to be driven by emotional highs of greed or the paralyzing lows of fear. They operate from a place of prayerful discernment and rational analysis, seeking to discern God's timing and direction. Practically, this means focusing on steady, value-driven sectors and assets rather than chasing volatile trends. While the allure of quick gains in speculative ventures can be strong, biblical wisdom guides us toward more stable, foundational investments. This might include well-researched real estate, investing in properties that produce consistent income or have strong potential for appreciation based on sound economic principles. Established businesses, investing in companies, or even starting one, in essential sectors like healthcare, technology, or sustainable energy that provide genuine solutions to real-world problems. Biblically screened index funds or ETFs, for broader market exposure, selecting funds that align with your values, avoiding industries that contradict biblical ethics, and maintaining a long-term perspective. These offer diversification and reduce the risk associated with individual stock picking, allowing your money to grow with the overall economy. Furthermore, wise investing is never a solitary endeavor. The wisdom of Proverbs, chapter 15, verse 22, again applies. Plans fail for lack of counsel, but with many advisors they succeed. Before making significant investment moves, actively seek out multiple, trustworthy advisors. This includes competent financial planners, seasoned business mentors, and wise, prayerful believers who can offer both practical insights and spiritual discernment. This diversified counsel helps to expose blind spots, challenge assumptions, and ensure your decisions are well-rounded and God-aligned. In practical application, begin by setting clear investment plans with defined risk limits and realistic profit goals. This clarity reduces emotional decision-making. Regularly review your portfolio and strategy, not impulsively reacting to daily market swings, but methodically adjusting based on long-term trends and your initial objectives. Emphasize portfolio diversification, spreading your investments across different asset classes, industries, and geographical regions, to reduce risk while still allowing for robust growth. This deliberate diversification is precisely what sets the stage for receiving and managing abundance, foreshadowing Solomon's example of not putting all his eggs in one basket, a principle we will explore further. When you invest with wisdom, not impulse, you are actively aligning your financial actions with God's principles of order, foresight, and abundant provision, building a secure foundation for lasting wealth. Part 9, Lesson 8, Diversify like Solomon did, Strategic Multiple Streams. Having rooted our investment approach in wisdom and deliberate action, avoiding impulsive decisions, we now move to a lesson that was masterfully exemplified by one of the wealthiest men in biblical history, King Solomon. This eighth lesson reveals the power of diversification, a strategy Solomon employed centuries before modern portfolio theory ever conceived of such a concept. King Solomon's legendary wealth and unparalleled wisdom, as chronicled in 1 Kings, chapter 10, were not accidental. While his wisdom was a divine gift, his prosperity was also a result of a highly diversified and strategically managed economic empire. He understood instinctively what many modern investors struggle to grasp: placing all your resources in a single venture, no matter how promising, introduces unnecessary risk. The wisdom of Ecclesiastes, chapter 11, verse 2, attributed to Solomon himself, encapsulates this principle: give a portion to 7, yes, to 8, for you do not know what disaster may happen on earth. This is ancient, divinely inspired counsel for strategic diversification, an encouragement to spread your resources across multiple ventures to hedge against unforeseen calamities. Diversification, in a kingdom context, means more than just randomly spreading your money around. It's about strategically positioning your resources across various sectors, different asset classes, and potentially even multiple nations, all aligned with biblical values and God's overall blueprint for your financial life. Solomon's wealth came from a multitude of well-managed sources. He controlled key trade routes, securing immense revenue from goods passing through his territory. He developed advanced agricultural systems. He oversaw gold mines. He accumulated vast herds of livestock, and he established strategic alliances and tribute relationships with surrounding nations. His economy was a complex, multifaceted engine of wealth, designed for resilience and continuous flow. Applying this Solomon-like approach to a kingdom-minded financial strategy today means balancing your portfolio with a mix of assets such as real estate, tangible assets that can appreciate and generate rental income. Dividend-paying stocks, providing consistent passive income and potential capital growth from established companies. Small business equity, investing in or owning a stake in an ethical, value-creating business that aligns with your passions and purpose. Global investments, prudently diversifying across different geographies to tap into diverse economies and reduce concentration risk, all screened for biblical values. From a business owner's perspective, this means proactively creating multiple income streams within your area of expertise or your primary business. For example, a consultant might offer one-on-one services, but also develop online courses, host speaking engagements, or write an industry-specific book to generate additional revenue. A physical retail store might expand into e-commerce, develop a subscription box service, or offer workshops related to their products. A ministry might derive support not just from donations, but also from selling books, offering educational resources, or hosting paid conferences, all of which align with its core mission. The profound benefit of this strategic diversification is the margin and peace it provides. When one revenue source slows due to market shifts, economic downturns, or unforeseen circumstances, the other streams can sustain you. This reduces vulnerability and fosters a quiet confidence, knowing that your provision is not dependent on a single, fragile thread. It also liberates you to take calculated risks on new ventures or to give more generously, knowing that your overall financial foundation is secure. Connecting diversification to stewardship, as seen in the parable of the talents, implies a responsibility to guard what God has given. The diligent servants didn't just multiply their initial capital, they managed it wisely. Diversification is a form of wise management, protecting your resources from undue risk, ensuring that the blessing God has entrusted to you is preserved and multiplied. It is an act of faithfulness, demonstrating that you are taking seriously the responsibility of stewardship. In conclusion, diversifying like Solomon is not an act born of fear of loss, but of faithfulness to wise stewardship and an understanding of God's providential design. It allows for diligent work in each portion, combined with a peaceful rest, knowing that your overall provision is secure through multiple channels. This strategic approach to building wealth is a cornerstone for true financial freedom, enabling you to operate with resilience and to be a continuous channel of God's abundant blessings, poised for even greater multiplication. Part 10, Lessons 9 and 10, Work diligently, rest in God's timing and leave a legacy, not just riches. We have traversed 9 profound biblical lessons for building lasting wealth, from God's blueprint and faithful stewardship to fearless multiplication, righteous foundations, and strategic diversification. Now, we integrate the final 2 powerful, complementary lessons that complete this divine framework, ensuring our pursuit of prosperity is both sustainable and eternally impactful. The first of these is Lesson 9, Work diligently, rest in God's timing. The Bible unequivocally champions hard work and diligence. Proverbs, chapter 12, verse 24, declares, "The hand of the diligent will rule, but the slothful will be put to forced labor." God blesses effort, initiative, and consistent application. Our work is not a curse, but a divine assignment, a means through which we create value and manifest His creativity in the world. However, diligence must always be balanced with a profound trust in God's orchestration and timing. We are called to sow, to water, and to tend the field diligently, but we cannot force the harvest. Trying to force results through relentless, unrestrained striving often leads to burnout, exhaustion, and ultimately, diminishing returns. It reveals a lack of trust in God as the ultimate provider and orchestrator. Consider the farmer waiting for the rains, as referenced in James, chapter 5, verse 7. See how the farmer waits for the land to yield its valuable crop, patiently waiting for the autumn and spring rains. The farmer works tirelessly to prepare the soil and plant the seed, but he cannot command the rain or the growth. He demonstrates consistent effort combined with patient trust in God's sovereign timing and natural processes. This balance is crucial. It also highlights the essential role of rest and Sabbath. As given in Exodus, chapter 20, the command to observe the Sabbath is not merely a religious ritual, it is a divine principle for renewing our strength, sparking our creativity, and, critically, reminding us that God, not our ceaseless toil, is the ultimate provider. Intentional rest is an act of faith, acknowledging that God is sovereign and that He can accomplish more in 6 days of our diligent, faith-filled effort than we could ever achieve in 7 days of anxious striving. In practical application, this means structuring your weeks and days with dedicated periods for focused, diligent work, but also with intentional, guilt-free downtime, true rest and recreation that renews your spirit, mind, and body. It involves trusting God to bring the increase in His perfect timing, rather than succumbing to the pressure of an incessant grind. The culmination of all these lessons brings us to Lesson 10, Leave a legacy, not just riches. This is the ultimate why behind building wealth God's way. If all our labor, our investments, and our discipline simply result in a larger bank account for personal consumption, we have profoundly missed the mark. The book of Proverbs, chapter 13, verse 22, calls us to a higher standard. A good person leaves an inheritance for their children's children. This inheritance is far more than mere money, which can, as history vividly demonstrates, vanish in a single generation if not stewarded wisely. A true kingdom inheritance includes wisdom, the principles of God's word lived out, faith, a vibrant, active relationship with God, and resources, material blessings to empower future generations to continue the kingdom mission. Leaving a legacy demands intentional planning. This includes establishing proper legal structures like trusts and wills, not just to transfer assets, but to clearly articulate your values and your vision for how those assets should be used for kingdom purposes. It involves setting up charitable foundations or designating portions of your wealth to specific kingdom causes that matter deeply to you. Crucially, it means actively mentoring the next generation, investing your time and wisdom, just as Paul poured into Timothy, 2 Timothy 2 verse 2, teaching them how to handle money God's way, how to walk in integrity, and how to utilize their resources for impact. It also means aligning your businesses with causes that extend beyond profit, whether it's funding schools, supporting missions, combating injustice, or providing dignified employment opportunities that uplift communities. Your business, too, can become a legacy builder. In essence, all your diligent labor, every wise investment, and every act of financial discipline should ultimately point toward building a lasting legacy that honors God and influences lives long after you are gone. Your wealth, in its accumulation and its deployment, becomes a powerful testimony of your faith, not just a measure of your fortune. My dear friends, the time for merely hearing these truths is over. The moment for living, applying, and sharing them has arrived. I challenge you to build a life not on the shaky foundations of debt and lies, but on the unshakable bedrock of God's wisdom, freedom, and divine purpose. Embrace this journey. Live these lessons. And watch as God transforms your financial landscape into a powerful testament to His faithfulness. Continue to engage with this ministry, as we seek to empower you with more of God's transforming wisdom for every area of your life. Go forth and build a legacy that echoes through eternity.